Hi, Danville. Alan Chills, Chief of Police here with the town, and we are 10-8 and in service, which means we're here to make people's lives better. And we do that by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. Welcome. This is a live broadcast, so if you have a question or a comment, just go ahead and throw it in the chat, and I'll try to get to it during the show. This is kind of a unique week. You're going to come along with the ride, and we're going to have a Danville first, and we'll talk about that a little bit. As always, I do want to talk about some of the evergreen things that we have. Please download the FEMA All Hazards Checklist. This has a lot of good information for those events that, well, I used to say rarely happen, but the power outages seem to be happening a little bit more. What this will do, though, is this will help guide you to be prepared. So should the power go out, you have a great chance of successfully navigating that and then be safe after the power comes back on. So there's a lot of good information and tips on what you can do, and talks about like when to throw food out and all that. So please download that. Also sign up for our community warning system through the Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff. Links in the description. And then download the community, the Resident's Guide to Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation. In that guide, you'll see there's information again on how to be prepared, but this one's specific to fires and the fire danger. So please download both of those. And one resource that we've been pushing out here, and I would encourage you, if you haven't checked it out yet, please go to the PG&E website. This came up at a council meeting last month, and the website that PG&E has stood up specific to safety and concerns about power going out, it's very, very good. And on this one, again, there's tips. And the one that we didn't really press, but is actually very good, is practice opening and closing your garage door. And so you can see that there's some good information in there. If you like this kind of engagement, but you want more of it, and maybe you want more in-depth, we've got a great opportunity. It's the last week before you can sign up, and that's for our Citizens Academy. It starts next Wednesday, so 7 days from now. So there's still a couple of spots left open. If you'd like to come join us, there is a link in the description. You can fill out the application and send it in, and we'll get you signed up for the class. But it's a great opportunity to see what it is we do. But really, there's two things. One, we want you to know everything it is that we do. We want you to meet a lot of our staff. But the important thing for me is this is my twice-a-year focus group where you can come in and let us know what we can do better to serve the community. All right, on to crime. CommunityCrimeApp.com. You can go there. You can download, or rather, our information is uploaded there several times a day. You can set up alerts so that you get notified if there is something new in your area. And you can also have access to the Megan's Law website on there as well. So not much to report here. September 18th through 24, we had no accidents that were reported. Doesn't mean that there wasn't a fender bender where parties exchanged information, but we took no reports, which is very, very rare. And then this is a Danville first to have no accidents and no reported Part 1 crimes. And I know we've talked about it in the past. That doesn't mean that there was absolutely no crime. It just means that we didn't have a homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, no burglaries, no thefts, not even a candy bar from the store. At least that was reported. I know there's probably, several thefts that go unreported. I get that. And no vehicle thefts, but it was kind of interesting. So we did have one that was reported, and they called us a few days later and said, actually, it's not stolen. And that happens sometimes, not specific to this case, but sometimes it could be someone parked it where they forgot. Maybe they let someone borrow it that they forgot, or someone has access to it that they had allowed, and maybe they didn't tell them they were taking the car, so those sort of things. So a lot of times we may take a crime report and it turns out to actually not be a crime. I thought I'd share something with you that we usually don't share on the show, but I kind of wanted to show you what it is we do. And if you look at the start of every show, we talk about the Pelian principles. And the last one, Pelian principle number 9, effectively says the true measure of law enforcement is not the visible presence of officers enforcing the law and driving up and down the street and making arrests in the middle of the road. It's the absence of crime. And that is a community effort with all of us. So if you're looking at how do you measure success, it really is the boring weeks. It's the week like this last week where we didn't have very much, where we had none in the way of Part 1 crimes, and we had no reported traffic accidents. Those are good days. We always tell the kids when we go to recess with the cops, or we tell during the Citizens Academy, that the best day for an officer is when we write no tickets and we make no arrests. Because if those two things are happening, that means that the conditions aren't present for someone that's driving poorly, running stop signs, speeding, running stoplights, talking on their phone, holding their phone up and looking at it. Those conditions that could create an accident aren't present. And the other side is on the crime side, it means someone's not a victim, right? In order for us to go and arrest someone or, investigate the crime and then make the arrest, someone has to be a victim of that burglary. And if that's not happening, that's a better place for us to be. But just because there's no part one crime, it doesn't mean that your officers aren't out there being proactive. And I think if we take a look at this last week's arrest log, we'll see what that actually looks like. All right, so on the 19th, we had arrest for DUI, and that was on the 400 block of Front Street. On the 20th, we had 2 arrests, one for a warrant on Brookside Drive in Greenbrook, and another arrest for DUI on Communitas Air and Creekside Avenue. On the 22nd, we had 2 arrests. We had one for DUI on San Ramon Valley Boulevard in Fountain Springs, and another DUI at El Cerro Boulevard and Enterprise Drive. On the 24th, we had a warrant arrest for the 200 block of Paraiso Drive. So I'll give you the interpretation of that. What that means, if you look at those are DUI arrests and warrants. One, it means, well, I guess the overarching thing, don't drink and drive. People shouldn't be drinking and driving. So it means that there's too many people drinking and driving if we're finding that many in a week. But if I'm looking at DUI arrests, if I'm looking at warrant arrests, typically, not always, but typically, that's because you have proactive officers that are out there doing speed stop sign enforcement. Maybe they're driving down the road and they're observing a car weaving in and about the roadway. All of those things that would lead them to make that probable cause stop or that reasonable suspicion stop for DUI, or maybe it's an equipment violation and they notice alcohol on the person's breath. But those are all assigned to me as the police manager over Danville to say that those are officers that are out there and they're being proactive, and they're doing that with that overarching mission to safeguard the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. So those are all good signs in that activity log. All right, I'm gonna check the chat. I don't see anything, but just as a reminder, if you have questions, comments, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We're gonna cover, this will be the last week, but this is week 3 of covering the town council update that I presented last month. And let's take a look at it. It is available on the Chief's website. You can go and you can download the last, I think, 6 years worth of yearly updates. And then I think we go back about 6 quarters on the quarterly updates. So what I wanted to cover today is I want to talk about like our special events. And so if you look at what I have up, it's the 4th of July. We do roll out the command center. That's what you see to the left there. But I really, happy officers on the right. That's awesome. It takes a lot of hardworking officers, deputies, volunteer staff, search and rescue, parking enforcement, professional staff. It takes a lot. And that's represented in that center picture. And the reason I wanted to put that up there is the greatest compliment I can get when these special events are happening or when they're done is that people enjoyed them without any fear of it being mismanaged, where maybe cars are getting onto the roadway that shouldn't be there, or really bad things are happening, right? So we spend a lot of time planning for these events. We devote a lot of resources, and gratefully we're part of the sheriff's office. So I couldn't do an event if this was a standalone police department and we only had our 30 officers, because we usually have 50 plus officers out at those events just to make sure that it's secure. And so the greatest thing we can do is provide that security for the event where the people enjoying the event don't actually feel like there's an overwhelming police presence. Again, it's not the visible presence of the officers, it's the lack of crime, it's the lack of disorder. And so that's what we're shooting for. We can look at our upcoming special events. We've got on the 10th, or we already had the 10th, the September events. We had the Hot Summer Sundays and the 9/11 Memorial. October 8th, so coming up in a week and a half, we've got the Run for Education. On November 22nd, we have what we call College Night. And then on the 24th, we have Lighting of the Oak Tree. Now, College Night isn't a sponsored event. It's just something that we know that takes place. And that's where the night before Thanksgiving, all the college kids come back to town. And what they do is they kind of mob the downtown area. So there's a ton of people in the downtown area. What I'm happy to say is I think in the 12, 13 years that I've been witnessing this event is I'm seeing a lot more people get their phones out and taking ride shares, calling parents to come pick them up. But what I'm not seeing is we're not seeing as much in the way of the drunk driving and that sort of thing. We do staff up quite a bit. We'll have officers downtown on foot. We'll have officers in cars kind of going around the area where we think we might need additional patrol. And then we also just have the officers that are normally out there responding to 911 calls and such. So there's quite a bit of resources that are devoted to that event to make sure that it's safe. We know that 10, 12 years ago, it used to get pretty wild. We'd get crimes of violence down there. And we just want to have officers very close, very present so that it dissuades people from doing that. In addition, over the last quarter or so, we did National Night Out. That's usually the first Tuesday in August. And then we held youth, teen, and adult academies. And the National Night Out, this is just a great way. That's the community event. Lots of you actually joined. You hosted these events. And what I'd like to do, and this is my pitch again, is as a police department, we are happy to come and join all of you in whichever way you see appropriate. So if you have backyard barbecues, if you've got an HOA event, if you've got a business staff meeting and you want us to maybe present on Run, Hide, Fight or Avoid, Deny, Defend, or you just want your community to have an update on what crime and traffic is going on, we're more than happy to do that. We're happy to just sometimes even just go and socialize and be present with all of you just to answer questions that you or your neighbors or your business partners may have. So we have a general policy not to say no. We haven't had so many requests that we've had to turn them down. I do like to personally go to most of them. And so if I can make it, I'll make it. If not, we'll make sure that someone is there in our place. All right. Again, I do want to plug, we do have some events coming up. We've got the Citizens Academy. It's starting next Wednesday. So right after the 10/8 show, we'll usually run into the Citizens Academy, and that'll go for 3 hours every Wednesday night and then 2 Saturdays. Also want to encourage you, download the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide and sign up for the Community Warning System and Nixle as well. And then go to the PG&E website. They've got a lot of good information there that you can view. You can download some of the information. They do have some handouts and flyers, but really the online portal just has a ton of good information. So we'd recommend that you do that. Also download that FEMA All Hazards Guide. It's a great guide for those seldom events. Print it out, go over it, stick it in a drawer, and you're good to go. All right. I am going to check the chat one more time and see if there's anything in there. I don't see anything. So Danville, thank you. I appreciate it. If you could do me a favor, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you're on YouTube. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook. Like the video, maybe pass it on to somebody else, forward it. I know it's, as the title says, it's pretty boring. So this may not be the greatest episode to send somebody, but I think it's a pretty good indicator of how we as a community are doing. You can't rely on just the police department to keep the community safe. I put those Pelian principles up at the start of every show, and I think it's the 7th one that says the people are the police and the police are the people, essentially meaning we're all in this together. We share the exact same responsibility. It isn't just my job or just the detective's job or just the officer's job or just our professional staff's job. It's all of our job. We just carry different roles, and we're the ones that you pay full time to take on that task. But the reason Danville's so safe, the reason that Danville's such a great place to live is because we all pull in the same direction. So with that, we're 10-10, but I thank all of you for what you do for the town because it really does make this a great place. So we're 10-10, but we're always 10-8 in service to all of you. Have a good night, Danville.